All right, let's do this together because this is going to be part two. So we have to understand this very well for us to actually understand our study today. So let's go to number one. What is anger according to the study? It is you owe me. Okay, I have certain expectation of something that you need to give to me. Focus, focus. Okay, and that you maybe stole something from me, or you needed to give me something, but you didn't give it to me. So therefore, you owe me something. All right. Tragedy is that in most cases, the perceived debt can never be paid. What is this talking about? This is talking about how, again, people owe us something. That means what? The best way to, if you owe me something, then how do you solve it? Then you give me what I want. But the problem is, some of these things, it cannot be paid off. Okay, if you have like a traumatic experience. So the example from last week was, what if a dad leaves you because he cheated, your dad cheated with another woman and left your family? What's the price? Okay, the dad wasn't there, it ruined the marriage, ruined the family. How do you pay someone back for that? Okay, let's go to number three. How does anger either make you hide your anger or justify your anger? So it's this idea that, none of us, we would say we like being angry, but a lot of times we stay angry. Why? Because there's power behind anger. Okay? What can we do? One thing we could do is we don't have to become vulnerable. Okay? We don't have to feel like we're weak. Okay? Or we can be very mean, or we could do things recklessly, but we could, because I could say I'm a hurt person, I'm an angry, well, we don't say I'm a hurt person, I'm an angry person. Therefore, how come you don't understand me? I'm the victim here, don't you understand? Okay, so it's okay that I hurt them back, emotionally, physically. Why? Because I'm an angry person. Okay? So there's different ways of how, if you leave anger within here, it could, another good way is you either throw bombs out, right? Because of your anger, you're throwing bombs out, or you're throwing bombs inside. Okay? Which makes you very, very numb or depressed as well. Or makes you an angrier person. All right, let's go to number four. What's the solution to anger then? We touched upon it a little bit last week, and we're going to touch upon it a lot today. But what is solution to anger then? It's going to be forgiveness. Okay, and today we're going to talk about how does forgiveness help with this sense of anger. Okay, so before we go on, we need to define what anger is. So go back in your group. What is forgiveness in your opinion? Go over that. And then I want you to even, forgiveness is a feeling? Yes or no? Forgiveness is forgetting what happened? Yes or no? You guys go over it all together, okay? So first, ignore number two. I'm going to erase number two. You guys just, on your own opinion, what is forgiveness? And afterwards, I'll put the options up. Okay? All right, go for it. All right. Okay, just by show of hand, just raise your hand, okay? Raise your hand. How many of you guys think forgiveness is a feeling? Raise your hand. Okay, that's 1, 2, 3. Okay, about half. Number two. By the way, it could be multiple things. It doesn't have to be just one of these things. Forgiveness is forgetting what happened. Forgetting what happened. Forgetting what happened. One figure, not maybe two. Okay. So some of you guys, forgiveness is when I can start trusting them again. When I can start trusting them again. Oh, about half. Half and 2 fingers. Okay. Forgiveness is accepting their behavior. Accepting their behavior. Whoa, that's like a loopy.
It's infinity. It's contingent on a couple of things.
Okay, so I think one of the problems that we have is we have a difficult time. Number one, forgiving, but we also have a difficulty because we have a hard time understanding what true forgiveness actually looks like as well. So hopefully we'll be able to do both. Okay, where do we get the power to actually forgive? And then second is, what is forgiveness in the first place? Or how do we even know that we've truly forgiven? Let's go into it. How often do I forgive? Forgiveness is not only difficult to do, but also difficult to understand. Fortunately for us, Jesus tackled the issue of forgiveness head on during his ministry on earth in Matthew 18. Do you guys know what? Of course all of you guys do, right? No. We'll get there, okay? As a disciple of Jesus, Peter understood his responsibility to forgive. So he's like, oh, I'm a good Christian. Of course I should forgive. But he wasn't sure how far to take it. What to do about a person who hurt you over and over and over and over and over again? So Peter asks, how often shall my brother, sin against me and I forgive him? Up to 7 times? Peter wanted to do the right thing, but come on. We all have limits. Where's the justice in a system where forgiveness is offered at every turn? So it just seems really, really unfair. Right? They're just going to step all over you and take advantage of you all the time if you just forgive every single time, right? Joey?
But by asking how often, Peter revealed his own misunderstanding of the nature of forgiveness. Like us, Peter assumed that forgiveness is for the benefit of the offender. And like many of us, Peter was willing to stretch a bit, to be a nice guy. He was willing to go as many as 7 rounds with the same person over the same issue. But after that, no more! After all, forgiveness has its limits. Everybody knows that.
Okay? So the idea is that we forgive, but we always think forgiveness is something that I'm doing a favor for someone else. Okay? So, and it's hard to do a favor for the same guy 7 times. Does that make sense? I mean, I could do it once, maybe twice, maybe 3 times. Maybe even 7 times like Peter, but over 7 times, that's a lot. Okay? So the idea is, we're doing a favor for you by me forgiving you. Does that make sense? And so now, let's see what the author is going to say. He's going to reverse that a little bit. Ezra?
I agree. Jesus responded by telling Peter one of his most intriguing parables. Therefore, the kingdom of heaven is like a king who wanted to settle accounts for his servants. As he began the settlement, a man who owed him 10,000 bags of gold was brought to him. Since he was not able to pay, the master ordered him to his wife and his children and all that he had to be sold to repay the debt. At this, the servant fell on his knees before him. Be patient with me, he begged, and I will pay back everything. The servant's master took pity on him, canceled the debt, and let him go.
Okay. So imagine a boss, okay, has an employee, blows 10,000 bags of gold. And we'll talk about later how much that we think. We don't have an exact number, but it's a pretty big number. So blows a lot of money. Okay? And basically says, okay, you owe the company, pay up. He basically, I don't have that money. Okay? So he says, okay, fine. What are all your assets that you have? Okay? We'll liquidate it. Does that make sense, right? But obviously, that's still not enough. But he says, please, forgive me. And so the boss says, all right, I forgive you. Okay, so we know this story pretty well, yeah? Continuing on, Lizia?
The thing that makes this parable so helpful is that Jesus talks about the emotionally charged topic of forgiveness in terms that everybody can understand. Simply put, forgiveness is the decision to cancel a debt. This is so simple, so practical, but so easily missed. Let's back up.
Okay, so we get the definition that the author says. Okay, remember, what was anger? Anger is you owe me. So forgiveness is going to be I make a decision to cancel whatever you owe me. Okay? Okay? So we get that so far? So we'll dive into it a little bit more. Jean?
Whenever someone hurts you, there's a sense in which they've taken something from you. A debt is incurred. We touched on this idea in our earlier discussion of guilt. If somebody gossips about you, it amounts to that person stealing your good reputation. When an employer fires a worker unjustly, the employer robs the worker of her financial security. If a man is unfaithful to his wife, he robs her of emotional security, and perhaps much more.
Okay, so again, we're getting this dynamic, right? If somebody does something to you hurtful, then what happens? Again, they took something away. So what do? You feel angry. Okay, keep going on.
Wherever there is hurt, there is theft, there is an imbalance. This is why we say things like, I'm going to get even with him, in order to achieve justice. Transaction must take place that transfers something back to the victim. It could be apologize, favor, money, or some other form of
Restitution.
restitution, but the tension will remain until the debt is settled.
Okay.
That sounds like a bank statement.
Yeah, that. I think he's trying to use those like languages. Yeah, like money language kind of stuff. Okay, so do you guys understand the concept so far? Okay, so this is what we talked a lot about when we talked about guilt, but this is what we're talking. Same thing, similar thing, right? Guilt is just the other side. Guilt is the person who took the stuff. They feel guilty, or if they know that it's wrong, of course. Of course, if they don't feel like it's wrong, then they're not going to feel guilty. But it's like, I owe you something. But anger is on the other side, the flip side, right? Somebody takes something from you, then you go, you owe me something. Okay, so there's always, whether it's guilt or anger, there's some kind of imbalance. Because somebody owes something. Does that make sense? Okay. So let's continue on.
In Jesus' parable, the master was going to settle his debt with the servant by selling the servant, his family, and all his possessions. The servant did the only thing he could. He pleaded for mercy and promised to pay his debt. 10,000 talents was an enormous amount of money, about $3.5 billion. His debt was beyond his ability to repay. Fortunately for him, his master was a merciful man. The master took pity on his servant and canceled his debt. That is the essence of forgiveness, a decision to cancel a debt.
Okay, so do you see that this amount is not something that you could just pay off, right? Even if you work, okay, so one talent, so it's 10,000 talent, right? One talent is 60 years of work. Okay, so whatever you guys make on an hourly wage, okay, no matter what it is, unless you're like Bill Gates or Steve Jobs or whatever, you're not making that much money in your lifetime, unless you lived like 10,000 life. Does that make sense? So this is not something, even though he's saying, I'll pay you back, this is not possible. That's what Jesus is really trying to get at. This is something that you cannot pay. Okay, that's very important, okay? All right, so again, what is idea of forgiveness? It is a decision. Okay, not a feeling. We're going to talk about that. It is a decision to cancel. All right, let's continue on.
Alright, Jesus continued, but when that servant went out, he found one of his fellow servants who owed him 100 silver coins. He grabbed him and began to choke him. Pay back what you owe me, he demanded. His fellow servant fell to his knees and begged him, be patient with me and I will pay it back.
Okay, so we know the story. We know how it goes. Okay, he just got forgiven. Okay, $6 billion. Okay, what does he do? He goes outside. He finds one of his coworker friend, okay, who owed him money. And so he starts saying, give me my money back. And then he says, be patient with me. And so he starts choking him and then decides to put him in prison. All right? All right. Margaret?
Now we find the forgiven servant in the same position his master was in, the place of power. His buddy owes him 100 denarii, about $6,000, a small amount that no doubt his fellow servant could have come up with given a bit of time. And we would expect this man whose massive debt has just been forgiven to extend the same grace to his fellow servant. Instead, he had the man thrown into prison until he could pay the debt. He chose to leave his unfortunate fellows the original agreement. Worse, he had him thrown in prison until he or a family member could raise the money to pay the debt in full.
Yeah. Okay, so again, we know, most of us, I think, know the story. But what's really interesting, again, yes, this is a much smaller amount than what he owed the king, but this is something that he could actually pay back. Okay, whereas the king forgave him of something that he cannot ever pay back. But this, with some time, okay, maybe some months, maybe a year, you could pay this back. Okay, does that make sense? All right, continuing on. When the other servants saw what had happened, they were outraged and went and told their master everything that had happened. Then the master called the servant in. You wicked servant, I canceled all the debt of yours because you begged me to. Shouldn't you have had mercy on your fellow servants, just as I had on you. To which I'm certain everybody listening, including all of us, to the story nodded vigorously and thought, of course, he should have mercy on his fellow servant. Anybody can see that. Okay, yeah, no one here is saying, but it's $6,000. Okay, nobody here is probably saying that. Okay, continuing.
In anger, his master turned him over to the jailers until he should pay back all he owed, and rightly so. Anybody that ungrateful deserves to have to pay his debt. He paid his debt. Right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I gotta change that. All right.
Have to change that.
All right, next.
For the next line, Jesus' closing statement was the zinger. This was the part of the story nobody expected. If Peter was still wondering what any of this had to do with his original question, it was about to become painfully clear. Jesus said, "This is how my heavenly Father will treat each of you unless you forgive your brother or sister."
Okay. So Jesus makes it pretty clear. He's basically saying, if you don't forgive, there is no forgiveness for you either. And then we see that pretty clearly in the Lord's Prayer as well, right? Right. The Lord's Prayer is what? Forgive us of our debts as... Right. So if I'm not forgiving, then that means I'm asking the same thing for God as well. Okay. So again, Jesus is saying the same thing here. Who's next? John? Or Lizzie, yeah?
If the meaning of the parable wasn't clear at the outset, it was certainly clear now. The king in the parable represents God. The servant who had his debts forgiven represents everybody who has had his or her sin debt canceled by God. And the second servant is anybody withholding something against because of something they've done to us. These are the people who owe us. The people we have
Legitimate?
legitimate case against.
Okay. So you guys again know the story. Okay, this is the king is supposed to be God. Okay, us, we're the people who owe what? What debt? Which debt?
A lot.
Okay, we're the ones who owe. Okay, the 8.5. Okay, the $6 billion debt. Okay, the unpayable debt. Okay, that's us. Okay, and then who are the $6,000 people? Yeah, people who owe us.
No, it's us.
Okay, it's us
Not
too
for
sometimes. Yeah.
people.
Okay.
When we have
So does that make sense? Yeah. So this story really is talking about us. All right, let's continue. John.
I've got to be honest here. When Jesus says, "This is how my Father will treat each of you," I don't know with absolute certainty what he's referring to, but obviously it's not good. Clearly, this was meant as a stern warning to those who refuse to forgive. Peter had his answer: forgive every time. If you don't, you'll pay dearly. To summarize, if we hold out waiting to be paid back for the wrongs done to us, we'll be the ones who pay it. If, on the other hand, we cancel the debts owed to us, we will be set free.
Okay. Okay. So the author takes a little more self-helpy approach, okay, which is fine too. Okay, so his idea is, again, most of the time we think of forgiveness as something we do a favor for other people, right? But what, according to this author, what he's saying is, no, you forgive for yourself. Okay, because if you don't forgive, there's a lot bigger issues at hand. Continuing on. Yeah.
From our perspective, we have every right to hold out.
Yeah, from our perspective, yeah.
From our
Let the man alone. No.
We'll cancel your debt.
I forgive already. From our perspective, we have every right to hold it out until we take back. From God's perspective, it's possibly the most self-destructive thing we can do. Your pain isn't trophy
Trophy.
to show off. It's not to store to tell. potentially poison to your soul. Refuse forgive to those who self-destruct.
Okay. So he actually says it very mildly. He says potentially it's poison to your soul. It's not potentially. It is poison. It is poison, right? Because if you have anger, right? Think of anger as like whenever like grace tries to come in, like the gospel, right? What's the gospel message? Gospel message is that again, what we went over basically, we owe God something that we cannot pay back, but we are still forgiven. Okay, that's the message. Is that message going to come in when you're thinking, I can't forgive other people, I can't forgive other people? So this will always clash. Does that make sense? So gospel will never sink in if you're holding on to anger. Does that make sense? So they're always contradictory. So that's why anger is such a dangerous thing. Because again, if you're saying, yeah, God forgives me, but I can't forgive other people, that becomes an issue, right? All right. Let's finish, and then we'll go into the next part.
That's still only the point of all that, or not. Shall we?
Yeah, let's wait.
I'll wait.
Okay, go on. Who's next?
The forgiven forgivers. The deeper meaning of this parable probably didn't hit Peter until months later, when he found himself staring at Jesus hanging from the Roman cross. If this was a price of his forgiveness, then who was he to withhold forgiveness from another? God's decision to forgive Peter required the death of his son. Peter's decision to forgive those who had offended him would cost him little more than his time. The same is true for us.
Okay. So again, now he understands what it took the king to actually forgive, to cancel the debt. It wasn't easy as, oh yeah, I'll just cancel. I have so much money, I'll just cancel it. It was actually, my son had to go and actually die. Okay, to pay that $6 billion debt that you could not pay. Does that make sense? Continuing on.
In the shadow of my hurt, forgiveness feels like a decision to reward my enemy. But in the shadow of the cross, forgiveness is merely a gift from one undeserving soul to another. Forgiveness is a gift that ensures my freedom from the prison of bitterness. When I accept forgiveness, I'm set free from the penalty of my sin. When I extend forgiveness, there's a sense in which I'm set free from my sin also.
Now that's really, really beautiful. Okay, in the shadow of my hurt, so from just my perspective, of course, it's always gonna feel like I'm losing stuff, right? They're gonna take advantage of me. They're gonna do stuff to me. Okay, why should I forgive? They've hurt me. Again, from my perspective, it's always gonna look like a loss. Okay, but again, if you look at it from the shadow of the cross, okay, this idea of the gospel, then it could become a gift. Then it becomes a beautiful, beautiful concept. So again, that's why, again, if you just think of forgiveness as, okay, I'm just doing somebody a favor, then you're gonna have a limit on forgiveness. But if you see it as a gift that you are receiving, that you are giving to other people, then you're blessing people. Okay, then it could become a beautiful thing. All right, continuing on.
The kind of forgiveness Paul's talking about doesn't make any sense unless you're a forgiven person. He felt free to command the believers to forgive unconditionally because he was writing to Christians who themselves had experienced the forgiveness of God. Whenever I talk to someone who's hesitant to forgive, invariably it's because this person is evaluating his decision in light of what was done to him rather than what was done for him.
Oh, okay. So again, it's very difficult to, it's almost impossible to forgive if you're, looking at it from perspective, right? There's a reason why you're angry. Okay, and you have every right to be angry as well. Well, not all of you, but some of you, depending on your situation, right? Okay, but again, you need to change your perspective. Okay, because you are not going to be able to forgive. But again, if you look at it from God's perspective, what God has done for you, how He has forgiven you, then again, giving that gift to other people becomes much easier. All right, next.
If you're a Christian, you aren't expected to treat others the way you've been treated by others. You've been called to treat people the way you've been treated by your Father in heaven. You don't forgive because the other person deserves it. You forgive because you've been forgiven.
Okay. All right. really quickly, let's go back. So you could share with your group, okay? Share with your group what you think. Any other things that you're like, no, but that's not right. Okay. Agree, disagree, go for it. And then we are going to actually do an activity together. But go for it.
Make sure that I speak where people can understand it's always going to be.
All right, let's get it started. All right. Now this is going to be very, very practical, okay? It's going to teach you exactly if you have resentment, if you have some bitterness, if you have anger in your heart, how to actually get rid of it. And I'm going to actually give you homework. And if you want to do it, if you want to do it with us afterwards, you are free to stay and do it and burn the paper afterwards. Or
Okay to do right now.
burn. We have a fire pit outside. Okay, or you could just take it home and do it yourself. Okay, I'm going to show you what it is and then hand out the paper. If you want to do it, stay afterwards. Number 1, identify who you're angry with. Forgiveness is not just the decision to move on with your life and forget the past. We'll talk more about that. Okay? It's not just moving on. Okay? It's not just forgetting. Trying to forget a debt isn't the same as canceling it. Does that make sense? Okay? Me forgetting that someone owes me $50 and me telling somebody you don't owe me $50 anymore, that's a very different thing. Does that make sense? Okay, that's the difference. Okay, me forgetting somebody owed me $50, okay, and me telling somebody I don't. Okay, very different. Do I owe you $50? Oh yeah. I owe somebody $50, and I keep forgetting it. But you see, the problem is I'm always reminded. It has not been canceled. I'm sure next time she sees me, she'll be like, "Where's my $50?"
Don't tell me, but that paper's not gonna work.
There's gonna
That
be
paper's
interest,
not
I
gonna
think.
work.
Okay. So funny. Yeah, who is it, Jill? Okay, we'll go on. Trying to forget a debt isn't the same as canceling it. Very clearly. I recommend that you make a list of people who have treated you or taken advantage of you. Go back as far as you like, but don't assume you've forgiven someone just because you put it behind you. Okay, just because you just say, oh, okay, or oh, I totally forgot about that. Okay, so a way to know whether you're still angry or bitter, resentful of that person. Who do you hope to never see again? Okay, again, you might say,
Sorry, repeat that.
okay, who do you hope to never see
I
again?
hope to never see.
Yeah, who do you hope to never see again? Again, if you're again, right? Because you could say, yeah, like I don't.
That owes me $50.
Yeah. Okay, you could say, yeah, I forgot about it, but if you don't want to see that person, again, there's a reason. Okay. I'm okay seeing that person. I do feel a little guilty. Who would you like to pay back if you could do it secretly? If no one knew about it and you could pay them back as in vengeance, like revenge. Revenge. Okay? Who would you take? Okay, that's a better. I'll change the phrasing. Okay? Who would you take revenge upon if no one would know about it?
Karen, what are you trying to teach?
Okay, next.
This is nonsense.
Who do you desire to see fail? Okay?
Just to identify.
Okay, so again, if you have hard time thinking of people that you're angry with, okay, then these questions are going to help you. Identify the people that you're angry with. Okay, so I'm not saying do these things. Okay. Number 2, determine what they owe you. This is very important. Determine what they owe you. Okay, because you might think you're angry at them, but you might not even know what they owe you exactly. All right. This is the step most of us skip. As a result, we forgive generally, but not specifically. So what do they owe you? This is where the parable of the ungrateful servant is so helpful. Just as the king forgave the specific amount owed him by the servant, okay, so we must determine exactly what is owed to us by those who have hurt us. Yeah, I think this is helpful because sometimes we have a perception that they owe us something, but perhaps now that you think about it, you realize maybe I have an unrealistic expectation. Maybe. I'm not saying every single case, no, not like that. But again, this is very helpful in that sense. Okay? General forgiveness doesn't heal specific hurts. Okay, so don't just say, yeah, I just forgive them. For what? Be very specific. What do the people on your list owe you? What did they take from you? What would you like? What would they need to return in order to put things back together back to what they were? An apology, money, time, marriage, family, job, reputation, on and on and on. Okay? So be specific. What do they owe you? Number 3, cancel the debt. Okay, after identifying exactly what has taken place, you must cancel the debt. That means deciding that the offending party doesn't owe you anything anymore. Okay, because once you cancel the debt, what happens? You cancel the debt. Okay, you can't be like, give me my $50. Yeah, I need to get my debt paid by her. Just as Christ canceled your debt, sin debt at Calvary or on the cross, so you and I must cancel the debt that others have incurred against us. I've heard of people who have listed what they owe and put it on the list and then burned it. Again, that's what we're going to do if you want to stay for it and actually do that. Okay? And declare that those debts, it's gone. It's burned. What happens if it's burned? It's not there anymore. Okay? So it's a good symbolism of that. All right, let's go to number 4. Joey?
Dismiss the case. The final process centers on a daily decision not to reopen your case. What makes this so difficult is that our feelings don't automatically follow our decision to forgive. Besides, forgiving someone doesn't erase our memories. If we could forgive and forget, this whole thing would be a lot easier. But in most cases, no sooner have we forgiven than something happens to remind us of the offense all over again. And when our memories are triggered, the old feelings come flooding back.
And this is why some of you guys might have you guys might be very confused as far as forgiveness goes. Because you go, oh, I've forgiven them, but why is it that I have these memories of them? Why? Because something traumatic happened, of course. You can't erase it. Okay, so it's going to take time. And sometimes there's going to be feelings that come. And you see that person, and there's going to be that negative feeling. Again, that's a very natural thing. Why? Because we have feelings. That's not a bad thing. Okay? So we're going to talk about this. Forgiveness is not just a feeling, but it's a decision to cancel. Okay? It's a decision to cancel the debt. Very, very important. Keep going. Lizia?
One of two things usually happen at this juncture.
Juncture. Mm-hmm.
We either A. Take a hold of the offense all over again, prep up the imaginary conversations, and reopen our case. Or B. We try not to think about it and turn our thoughts elsewhere. Neither response is appropriate or helpful. When memories of past hurts flood your mind, go ahead and face them. Allow yourself to remember the incident, but instead of reopening the case against your offender, take this opportunity to restate your decision. She doesn't own you.
Yeah. Okay. So again, you're gonna have memories, you're gonna have feelings, but again, it's a decision that you have made. Okay, you burn the paper. Whatever you did, you go, that person doesn't owe me. That person doesn't owe me. Because if you don't do that, what's gonna happen? Is you're gonna play that mind game. You're gonna be like, oh yeah, I could do that to her, or I could do that to him, or this is what I was, and then you just keep going and going and going, and then again you're poisoned again. Continuing on, last part.
Don't accept the lie that you haven't really forgiven. Focus on the truth that this debt has been canceled. How do you know? Because you decided, as an act of your will, to cancel it. Feelings come, feelings go, but the decision remains. They don't owe you. Your memories are not your enemies. Memories are simply memories. What you do with them will determine their impact. The day will come when you'll be able to respond to your offender in light of where they stand in relationship to Christ, rather than in light of how that person treated you.
Okay. So let's summarize really quickly. Forgiveness is a decision, not a feeling. Okay, it's a decision. Jesus never told any of us to say, feel forgiveness or feel love towards your enemy. What does it say? Love your enemy. Pray for your enemy. All of these are action words. Okay, he never says, wait until you feel really good, then pray. Okay, it doesn't say anything like that. Okay, feel until like you have that bubbly feeling, like when you see that person, then you love them. It doesn't say that, right? It says love. Okay, that's an action. That's a decision. Okay, so it's a decision, not a feeling. Of course, there is emotions, hopefully later down the road when you have peace and these kind of things. But again, it doesn't come immediately. It's a decision. It's a firm decision to say no. Number two, it's an active decision. Again, active. It's active. I say active because, again, you have to actively, every single time when memory comes, you have to say no. It's very active. It's not a passive thing. It's an active decision to forgive the debt even when memory surfaces. Okay, so it's not forgetting. Okay, again, down the road, you might, because you've forgiven, you might forget down the road. But it's going to take some time. Okay, so it's not just erasing something of your memory. Okay, why? Because again, someone hurt you. That's a painful thing. You can't just forget that. Okay? But again, it's an active decision, like what we talked about in the previous slide, to say, no, I have forgiven, I have forgiven, I have forgiven. So it's an active decision. Okay? Number three, this is very, very important. This is what Jesus talks about when he says, pray for your enemies, love your enemies, wishing them the best. Okay? And not condoning their action. This is very important. Okay, so this is not accepting of people's behaviors. Okay, when people hurt you, it's not okay that they hurt you. Does that make sense? So forgiving them doesn't mean, okay, you hurt me, but I'm just going to take it. I'm just going to take it. Okay, it's not that. It's saying, no, it's not okay that you're continuing to hurt me. Why? Because if you love somebody, then you would want them to stop their hurtful behavior as well. Does that make sense? Okay. So again, it's wishing them the best. It's praying for them. It's being able to pray for them. Okay. So I would say if you're not going to do this, and if you have somebody that you're angry with, the first thing I tell everybody, normally whoever have anger issues, I always say pray for them. Pray for them. Wish them well. It's going to be very difficult. It's very difficult. But wish them well. Say, God, this person has done this to me and this person has hurt me. But I'm praying that God, you would change his heart or change your heart so that they don't continue to do this. Okay, so you wish them well instead of wishing them harm. Because that's what we normally do. We go, oh yeah, they broke up, oh yeah, that's great. They fell in a hole, yeah, that's great. Okay, no, wish them the best. Okay, I think that's it. Get together with your groups once again, finish up, pray together, and then if any of you guys are in, I'll pass this out. You can do it here, you go home and do it by yourself, do whatever you want. Go for it.
For his name.